Welcome, everyone. This is your technical English course, and it's designed specifically for you, the students here at the Faculty of Computer Science at USTBH. I'm your instructor, Mrs. Suan, and today we're going to dive right into one of the absolute core foundations of English, understanding quantifiers.
So here's our game plan for today. We'll kick things off with the big question. What exactly are quantifiers? Then we'll break down the three main types you need to know. After that, we'll get into the more subtle stuff, the nuance of quantity, and cover the rules for the words you'll be using all the time. Of course, we'll do a little debugging on some common mistakes, and we'll wrap it all up with a quick knowledge check. Sound good? Let's get started.
All right, first up, what are quantifiers really? Before we can use them properly, we've got to understand what their job is in a sentence.
When you get right down to it, quantifiers are just words that answer one of two questions: how much or how many. That's it. Now, the technical term is determiner, which is just a fancy way of saying it's a helper word. Its only job is to tell us about the amount of something. Are we talking about tons of data or just a little bit? A quantifier gives you that answer.
And this slide really breaks it all down. Everything boils down to these two questions. On the left, we've got how many. This is for things you can actually count, one by one. Like bugs in a program, servers in a rack, or lines of code. You can have 1, 2, 3 of them. But on the right, we have how much. This is for concepts, stuff you can measure, but you can't count individually. Think about it. Data, bandwidth, information. You can't say you have 3 informations, right? But you can have a lot of information. Getting this difference is the absolute key.
Okay, so we've got the what. Now let's talk about the how. This brings us to what I consider the single most important principle for using these words correctly. If you only remember one thing from our time today, make it this: the golden rule.
And here it is, the golden rule. Now, for all of you programmers, this is going to sound very familiar. Think of it as a basic if statement in your grammar code. Before you pick a quantifier, you run a quick check. If the noun is countable, then you use one set of words. Else, if it's uncountable, you have to use a totally different set. This simple check makes everything else fall into place.
And this table, this is your ultimate cheat sheet. It lays out that whole if-else logic perfectly. See that first column? That's your list for countable nouns. You can have many servers, a few bugs, several lines of code. The middle column is for the uncountable stuff: much information, a little time, a large amount of data. And then you have that third column. These are the flexible ones, words like some, any, and a lot of, that can play for both teams. Seriously, you might want to pause and take a screenshot of this. It's your reference guide.
All right, now this is where English gets kind of cool and a little more complex. Some quantifiers do more than just count. They actually carry, well, an attitude, a feeling about the quantity. This is one of those subtle things that makes a huge difference in sounding natural.
Let's look at few versus a few. The only difference is that one tiny little letter, a. But wow, does it completely flip the meaning. If you say someone has few friends, it sounds a little sad, It has a negative feeling, like it's not enough. But if you say he has a few friends, the vibe is instantly positive. It suggests the number is small, sure, but it's enough. It's a good thing. That's nuance. And it's the exact same logic with little and a little for those uncountable nouns. If you say, ugh, I have little time, it sounds like a complaint, right? You're rushed, it's negative, you don't have enough. But if you say, I have a little time, it sounds like an offer. It means you have a small amount, yeah, but it's enough to help. The attitude is totally different. Okay, let's get even more practical. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty rules for 3 of the most common quantifiers you'll be using all the time: enough, some, and any. Let's start with enough. The meaning is easy. It just means a sufficient amount. The tricky part is where it goes in the sentence. But thankfully, the rule is super simple. Enough always comes before a noun. For instance, we have enough memory. But it comes after an adjective, as in, is the connection fast enough? Before nouns, after adjectives. That's the whole rule right there. Next up are some and any. The easiest way to remember this is to think of some as the positive or yes word. We use it in affirmative sentences like, I have some questions. Any, on the other hand, is for the negative and question situations. You'd say, I don't have any questions. Or you'd ask, do you have any questions? So positive statements get some, negatives and questions get any. Simple as that. Perfect. So now that we have the rules, it's time for a bit of code cleanup. Let's debug some of those really common errors that can pop up when we're using quantifiers. Okay, let's squash a few common bugs. First, in most positive sentences, especially when you're speaking, a lot of just sounds more natural than many. So
I have a lot of work, is better than I have many work. Second, and this one is huge, fewer versus less. The rule is simple. If you can count it, use fewer. You have fewer errors in your code, not less errors. Third, remember that attitude we talked about? A few is positive, few is negative. And finally, don't leave your quantifiers hanging. It's not just most of. It's most of the team or some of the data. It always needs to connect to the noun.
Whew, okay, that was a good bit of information. So how about we compile what we've learned with a quick knowledge check? I'm going to show you 3 sentences with a blank. In your head, just think about which quantifier fits best. Ready?
All right, here's the first one. I don't have blank homework tonight. Should that be much or many? Take a second. Think about that noun, homework. Is it countable? Okay, number 2. Can I have blank sugar in my tea? Are you going to ask for a few sugar or a little sugar? Again, think about the noun.
And for the last one, let's hit that classic tricky one again. There are blank students in class today. Is the correct word fewer or less? Okay, let's see the results. The correct answers are much, a little, and fewer. Why? Because homework and sugar are uncountable, so they take much and a little. But students, well, you can count students, so the correct word is fewer. How'd you do? Hopefully it all clicked.
And that brings us to the end of our lesson. Thank you all for your attention. Now, remember, just like with coding, knowing the theory is the first step, but real mastery, that comes from practice.
So to really make these concepts stick, please head over to the classroom assignments section. I've got some deeper practice and some hands-on exercises waiting for you there. I'll see you there.